I've lived in New York City for more than a decade now, and along the way, I've learned some lessons that I think you all need to hear. Today, I'll be sharing 7 hard truths about moving to New York City. You don't want to miss it. Start with the one that is something people deal with before they even move here, and it's you're never too old to move to New York City. There's this misconception that it's best to move to New York when you're right out of college, 21, 22 years old, fresh-faced, starting a new career in finance or a creative field. And while that is very common, you do not have to be that young to move to New York City. I'm a perfect example. I moved here when I was 27, and that's considered old by many people that I lived at home for so long. I once met a guy who was in his early 50s, and he was living like somebody a lot younger in Harlem with a roommate or two, pursuing this dream of being an actor. And you are not a failure if you're in your 50s and you move to New York and you have to have a roommate or two to make ends meet, because you're doing things on your terms. As long as you choose to move to New York City for the right reasons, there's something here that's drawing you in, be it a career decision, be it a change of lifestyle, you can move here at any age. Don't let real estate brokers pressure you. There's this stereotype world over that taxi drivers are the sleaziest profession anywhere you go. Well, I'm here to tell you, a lot of New York City brokers are ruthless. This is not any kind of a jab at all brokers in New York, because there are some good ones. Let me share a story though to illustrate my point. I have a friend who's a broker in New York, and many years ago, I was in the Village meeting up with him, and he asked me, hey, listen, can you stand in front of the door here, and when this couple comes up, can you say to me, hey, I love the apartment, I'm gonna put in an application right now. Something that a lot of New York brokers are notorious for is pressuring you to apply for an apartment pretending that other people are interested. If you go to an open house of an apartment and there's a line of 50 people waiting for it, odds are you're gonna have some competition. But if the apartment's been sitting vacant for a month, there's probably nobody else applying at the same time. And a little trick is to go to streeteasy.com and see how many people have saved the apartment. Now, the newer the listing, the more likely there is to be a lot of interest in the unit. And of course, there was the story I documented on the channel of how the broker wanted me to pay a $200 application fee when the legal limit is $20 in New York City. All I'm saying is don't let brokers pressure you into taking an apartment that you're really not that interested in. Space versus location. This is a very common dilemma for people who are new to New York City. Do you live further away in a neighborhood that you don't like as much but have a huge space? Or would you prefer to live in a really cool neighborhood but have a smaller apartment? My advice is, especially if you're single and you're young, take the smaller apartment in a better location. You can always move away somewhere else to a bigger apartment or a bigger house. But I think part of the fun of moving to New York City, if you can afford it of course, is to live in a neighborhood that you're really going to enjoy. I grew up in the suburbs. I think space is overrated personally. Now I'm about to have a kid. That opinion is likely going to change due to that circumstance. So when you're single, I always would lean on the better location. And my philosophy about being new to New York is move to the best neighborhood that you can afford. And if you don't know what neighborhood to pick, we actually did a really cool video about how to find the right one for you. If you're extremely wealthy, you can skip this one here, but you'll never find the perfect apartment. There's always gonna be some kind of a compromise. It's either too expensive, too small, or everything is just right, but it's a 6th-floor walk-up. The only time I ever heard people telling me they got the perfect apartment was during the pandemic, when prices were slashed 20, 30, even 40% in some cases. Heck, I'm somebody that moved during the pandemic, and I think we really got an apartment that maybe we wouldn't have landed at this price or even gotten due to competition in other scenarios. With the average apartment price in Manhattan right now at $5,000 a month, get that perfect apartment ideal out of your head. Just get it out of your head. You may not have a dishwasher or laundry in your unit, but if it means I save $1,000 a month on rent, that's something I'm personally willing to accept. Measure everything. Now, if you're coming from a part of the country where houses are commonplace and everybody has a ton of space, I grew up in the suburbs, that's what it was like for me. It wasn't such a big deal, but in New York City, especially apartments that newcomers would move into tend to be on the smaller side, or at least smaller than anything you've ever lived in before. Take my desk where I'm filming this video right now. I had to scour the internet to find a desk small enough to fit this little space between two windows. If I just haphazardly ordered furniture to this apartment without being very clear about how much space I had and the measurements available, I would be returning things left and right. So when you move to New York City, you've got to measure out every little detail to make sure that your furniture will fit. And a little bonus here, if you need ideas on how to decorate, this is something that my wife Adriana did a tremendous job with. Go on Pinterest. There's so many great ideas on Pinterest of how to decorate and design smaller New York City apartments, and you can get your inspiration from other cities like London or Paris, for example. It is easy to make friends here. I have had a lot of people over the years send me DMs to Instagram worried about how am I gonna meet friends moving to New York City? It's this big anonymous place, there's so many people, how's it gonna be done? I actually find this ironic in a way, because a lot of these people are coming from smaller towns in the United States where I would be more afraid to move to from New York to make friends. Areas where people have established relationships for years and years. Moving to New York City is like having a clean slate in many ways. There are so many transplants here who are looking for new friends. Whatever your interests are, whatever your tribe is, you can find it here. It may take some effort. We did a great video a couple years ago about how to make friends in New York. I even used some examples from my experiences of different groups that I joined. You can volunteer. So many options out there. New York City is an excellent place to move to have a new beginning. Number 7, you don't have to live in Manhattan. Don't get that FOMO, and I've got a special guest to help out with this point.
I'm getting bigger, so I can't really go out that much with this weather. A lot of people watch these shows on TV, Friends, Sex and the City, and things like that, and they think like, I have to live in Manhattan, like that's where everything's going on. And I'm not saying Manhattan is not a good place, but there are other places in New York that you might like. Before we moved here, I didn't know if I was gonna like this place. I thought I was gonna get bored after a while, but you will be surprised. Brooklyn has a lot of stuff going on. Queens has a lot of stuff going on.
I just want to add that the way that the New York City subways were designed is everything is going into Manhattan from anywhere you look. It's much tougher to go from Brooklyn to Queens, but if you need to go to Manhattan even a few times a week, it is super easy. I do it all the time. Show everybody what's going on in this room. Little surprise bonus.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow my channel or if you've seen the tour of our apartment, this used to be my office. Well, we're a baby's room right now. We have a changing table, a rocking chair, diapers, very important. Yep, I've been working on it. I think it looks pretty. I just got on the email new stickers that I made from like New York, so I've been working on that.
When you move to New York City and realize how expensive life here is, you may want to make some extra cash. In this video right here, we share 7 side hustles that just about any New Yorker can do. Check this out, trust me.